Naik, the Group Executive Chairman of L&T.
Hello, good morning. I have with me the Executive Chairman of L&T, Mr. A.M. Naik, to talk us through his reaction to interest rates, the current situation in the economy, and therefore the prospects for L&T for the second half of this fiscal year. Mr. Naik, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18.
Good morning, and you have been here after a long time, so welcome.
So I was here in March. That was 6 months ago.
Yeah, but that's a long time, no?
It is a long time, undoubtedly, and so much has happened in that time. More recently, we saw a 50 basis point cut by the Reserve Bank of India in benchmark rates. Are you cheerful about those rate cuts, or that rate cut, if I may put it so, or are you maybe a little gloomy about the underlying prognosis for the global economy and therefore for slower growth?
Let's take two things
separately,
not the same time.
Okay.
Last year, in February, when someone like you interviewed me and asked me, do you think that we need to have a rate cut? And I had then said that if you had, and by that time, the inflation was around 6%. I can't say it was that high. So I had said that if you really want to give a boost to the economy, you should have a drastic cut, not this quarter percent, which happened thereafter.
Okay.
And I had said that 1% cut should be implemented. And thereafter, for a long time, there was no cut. Then there was a quarter percent. This year, there were one time, I think, 1/4%, and now 0.5%. So totally, since the time I spoke, the interest rates have been brought down by 1.25%. But the real issue is the banks are not passing on that. And I think Reserve Bank has to do something about it. The whole idea is that this rate cut reaches to the consumers.
Correct.
And the economy gets a boost. Even SBI have only passed on 0.7% from 1.25, which has been effective cut. And ICICI have passed on 0.25%. Somebody has passed on 0.65. The highest is 0.7. My point is, if 1.25% is a rate cut, why at least 1% could not have been cut? Then there is a real impact on the consumers, the people who want house, the people who want cars, two-wheelers, and so on, and the consumption can get a boost. So my first reaction is that all the banks somehow should be persuaded to really give that rate cut which will boost the economy. Okay. That's one. Two, capital projects will benefit with a lower interest rate. You know, there are two kinds of capital projects. One is EPC, where the government spends all the money, or annuity-based, and then there are PPP projects. Correct. I'm talking infrastructure. And the PPP projects, unfortunately, the private sector which used to participate last time are today not participating because they are all in financial strain. Almost 8 out of 10 companies are in that position. Correct. And are going for restructuring the loan and taking the cut.
And asset sales, etc. Everything possible to deleverage.
And some of them are no longer existing. And there are possibly 75 odd projects are stopped halfway. I'm talking only road projects.
Yeah.
I'm sure that is true of many other projects, like power plant have stopped. And though the coal issue may have apparently been solved, right? Whether the mining has taken place on the ground, the coal supply has started, all that, one needs to really improve that implementation for varieties of reasons, including the financial strain on the private sector who has to pay that auction amount and start mining, has possibly not happened so much as we had wished. So the rate cut will help to an extent for those half-stop projects, that their loan commitment, I mean the repayment commitment would come down to an extent,
easier, yes.
Although it will have a impact over a period of time. It's not going to start something tomorrow.
Correct.
It's not that because 0.5% interest cut has happened, they will start spending money. But at least they will start reforming themselves much faster, or rather faster. Correct. Than it would have taken, right? So I think on the whole, this is a very welcome step, long overdue, I would say. And I only hope all the banks will pass on the interest cut to the consumers and to the spenders, or those who are investors, and on the whole, this should give some edge up to the economy.
You know, given the transmission where it is today by banks, have you worked out roughly back of the envelope calculation on what it means for your interest savings at L&T?
Well,
Will it have any sizable
you see, the
impact
point is L&T is a AAA rated company.
Correct.
We always got a very attractive interest rate. And we have our effective interest rate was only 8.75. Now they have brought to 9.25. We think we may come down by 25 basis point and thereby may have a saving of about 100 crore.
Okay. I want to go back to my very first question that I asked you. Implicit in the commentary on the rate cuts or the circumstances surrounding the rate cuts is a slightly gloomier picture of global growth. And India cannot stay unimpacted by that. So therefore I ask you, while the rate cut might be cause for some cheer based on the transmission by banks, how worried are you currently about the growth scenario?
Well, I think the whole picture around the world is not that gloomy as possibly many people think. I don't.
Okay.
The US economy is growing. I think it is one of the strongest today than in last several years. The employment has grown. A lot of outsourcing which comes to India has increased.
IT spends you're referring to. Are you referring to IT spend?
Yeah, IT, the back office and many other services, service sector basically. And that should give a little edge up. Also, I think India has certainly become a scientific and the engineering force country. And lots of international companies are coming and putting up their shops for the back office, and particularly now technology and engineering work for their own products worldwide. So I think there is going to be more employment, and when the profit goes up within the companies due to the economic growth in US, there is going to be some impact, definitely positive on India. Now let's look at the rest of the world. The rest of the world is not in such a good shape. And everyone talks about China's growth slowing down and so on. You know, of course, Europe is stagnant, Japan is no better, but China, in my view, it's an opportunity, right? If the China's growth is slowing down, unless it is due to internal consumption, I think the world, like America, should look at other destinations for manufacturing under the government of India's program of Make in India, right? And inviting them to come and put up their shops, and almost all the chief minister, by the way, in the investor conference, which was started originally in Gujarat, now has caught up in all the states.
Correct.
And therefore, there is some change politically that we will have to entice people to come. Not that earlier mentality was, oh, let the person come and, you know.
So like many other business leaders, you believe that this too is an opportunity or an opportune time for India to be able to attract investors. I then want to focus your attention on the domestic economy. You're saying India looks good, an oasis amongst the trouble around us. Well, tell me what you make of the health of the domestic economy right now. Forget the numbers, the GDP growth numbers, all of that. You have a finger on the pulse of the domestic economy through the projects that you work with. What are you picking up?
I think it's a mixed bag. You can say some sectors are growing, doing well, where the funds have been allocated, projects were already designed and crafted, and therefore they could be put for implementation faster. This year and the last year, both years, the road sector has taken off very well. The target of 30 kilometers per day, I think the government will meet. As I speak to you, there are more than 20 tenders which people are bidding. Last 6 months, about 18 of roads have been awarded, and they are talking about 10,000 kilometers of awards this year. I think they will reach the target. So I think so far so good in that sector.
Okay.
So far as the major problem on power that the India is facing, apart from power generation, is power transmission. The transmission losses, then the power is generated in one corner, but the shortage is in the other place. So the entire power grid has to be strengthened and reaching out to every corner. And a very strong, robust national grid and a regional grid has to be created, which has very imbalanced, has been much imbalanced, quite a bit has improved over the years. That needs boosting, and the government is giving its boost. So there is a lot of money being spent there.
Okay.
I think these two sectors are doing well. Third, I would say likely to pick up, and more so because of the two consecutive near drought conditions, is an issue that we must solve of water. That means the water leakage to be stopped in our system. There is a lot of water leakage underground from the pipelines and so on. A lot of water to be recovered from the sewage and other place for not drinking but other purposes. Rivers to be interconnected.
Okay. Sorry, forgive me for interrupting you, sir. I will go sector-wise, but what I'm trying to get right now is a big picture view from you. You told me when I met you in March this year that you expected an improvement in the ground realities in the second half of the year. Are you finally seeing that improvement take place? Because it's been 6 months since we last spoke.
I'm saying this, that selectively it is taking place, as I told you, on roads and transmissions.
At a speed fast enough to meet your approval?
In these two sectors, I think they are picking up fast.
Okay.
But there are many other areas where the implementation needs to be much faster. And a lot of mega projects which could have, I would say, given a lot of employment, and quite a few are around Mumbai. Last time I had told you, the bridge across the harbour, the coastal road, the fast train, the super fast train, bullet train, the mass transit systems of Bombay to be improved, Metro Line 2, Metro Line 3 to be created. All of these is moving, but very slow pace.